Brics countries, which are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have become a major driving force in the global economy. They make up about 44% of the world's population. They account for nearly 1/4 of global economic output and half of world economic growth. Now, former Goldman Sachs chief economist Jim O'Neill, he coined the acronym BRIC, and that was back in 2001. He saw them as economies which would blossom in the 21st century and take the lead in global business. Now, of course, South Africa later joined to make the term BRICS. But 16 years later, since O'Neill coined that term, BRICS have a combined economic worth of about 16.6 trillion US dollars, way more than the 11.6 trillion he predicted then. Now, we have seen subdued progress from BRICS nations in the past decade as the world economy, of course, recovers from the financial crisis, and suddenly China embarking on a different phase of development changes that as well. Here's a look at their progress so far. China's economy continued its steady expansion in the first half of this year. Its GDP was up about 6.9% to about $5.6 trillion. Now, Russia and Brazil suffered recessions in recent years, but we saw Brazil's economy grow by about 1% in the first quarter of this year after 2 consecutive years of declines. Russia, on the other hand, achieved a growth rate of 2.5% year on year in the second quarter of this year. India lost the tag of the fastest growing BRICS nation to China. That was in the March quarter. Its GDP growth is about 6.1%. However, real GDP growth is expected to average at about 7.4% over 2017 and 2018, and that's according to a Deutsche Bank report. Now, South Africa is a slightly different picture. It is the smallest BRICS country economically, and its domestic growth prospects have weakened, suddenly following the surprise GDP contraction in the first quarter of 2017. The central bank there revised down its growth forecast for 2017 full-year GDP growth to 0.5%, down from 1%, but investors are still choosing to invest in South Africa. It is a top performer amongst global emerging markets in terms of equity fund flows. However, many do still agree that politically South Africa is very important to being a part of the BRICS, being one of Africa's more developed nations, and certainly in its role as a gateway to the continent. Now, looking forward, economists still agree that BRICS countries are playing an increasingly important role in trade globally, not only driving regional growth, but also helping to lift the global economy. And taking a look at the numbers, BRICS took up about 23% of global GDP in 2016, up from 12% a decade ago, but only accounted for 16% of world trade and 16% of a total of foreign investment and about 12% of outbound investment.